everyone, welcome to week 3, lesson 3 of Learning the Tarot, A Beginner's Journey. We are halfway through the 4-week course, which is very exciting. We really focused a lot upon the major arcana, the first 2 lessons. Now we're going to cross that bridge today from the major arcana and go into the minor arcana cards. So please separate all your major 22 arcana cards from the deck that you've been using, keep them out, and proceed to your minor arcana cards. I want you to separate each suit, and you can pause this video, and it may take you some time if you're not familiar with the cards in each suit, but essentially you want to separate each suit. There's the suit of wands, suit of cups, suit of swords, and the suit of pentacles. Separate each suit and put them together in numerical order. So you want to begin with the ace first, then go to number 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, then the page, the knight, the queen, the king for each suit, because I'm going to really dive into those cards for each suit today. So do that very quickly, and I'll meet you right back here. Okay, everybody, now once you have your 4 suits separated and put into order, it's going to look a little something like this. You're going to start with your ace, then you're going to have your 2, then you're going to have your 3, your 4, and so on until you get to number 10 in the suit. And when that happens, you're going to start with the court cards. Your page is first because he's the youngest. Then the knight is like the teenager in the deck. Then the queen is the mother, and the king is the father. So once they're all separated, each suit in order, numerical order as well, because they should be numbered, except the court cards won't be numbered, obviously. The ace is basically 1, then they will be numbered 2 to 10, and then your 4 court cards. So jumping from the major to the minor, crossing that bridge, there's elements that philosophers regard to the minor arcana as being the building blocks of the universe because of the elements associated with them. Many believe that earth, air, fire, water was what's created the universe, or what has created our world. There's much magic associated with that as well, especially earth, air, fire, water are the 4 directions. They're also very much associated with the 4 quarters and a magic circle, if you're familiar with Wicca or paganism or rituals of that kind. There's many things associated with these elements, especially in astrology as well. So if you're a fire sign, water sign, air sign, and earth sign, you know what I'm talking about. Everybody knows their astrological sign who's watching. So there's many things tied up with the minor arcana, especially numerology. Now, I'm not going to get into that too much because there's so much that's associated with numerology and astrology with the tarot, but just remember those are added branches of the tarot. The tarot can really stand by itself. The astrology element, the numerology element are branches of the system of study of divination. The tarot itself can really stand on its own. So if you want to explore that on your own, I would really encourage you to do so because it's very, very fascinating as well. Now, going through each suit, it's ace to 10, and each suit plus the 4 court cards. Now, there's energies associated with each element. Wands are tied to the fire signs, which is all about creativity and growth or enterprise and business. Many things with communication, even writing, the arts, passionate endeavors. Cups are very much associated with water signs, obviously. Love, happiness, emotion with the cups. When you see a prominence of cups in a reading, it's very much about relationships and love. The swords are associated with the element of air, with the air signs. And they're also the one suit in the deck that's very much with aggression or strife or worry, and also courage and boldness at the same time. The pentacles are associated with earth, the earth signs, very much about things on the physical plane, money, finance, possessions, objects. So in terms of direction and change, that's what the wands are for. When you see a prominence of wands in a reading, it's much about direction and change. When you see a prominence of cups, it's very much about love and emotion. Swords can be strife and aggression or worry or anxiety. Pentacles can really be about money and finance, jobs, career, and so forth. Many court cards in a reading could be many people involved. We'll get into that further. Many aces in a reading, each suit has its own ace. Many aces in a reading can also signify many things happening at once or many directions or beginnings. So while the major arcana deals with large universal concepts, the minor arcana fills in the details. So the 56 minor arcana fill in the details. So if you notice working with the major arcana, you may have wondered how each card applied to your life. Well, with the minor arcana coming into play, it's going to fill in those gaps if you had questions. It's going to fill in those little details. It adds the characteristics. It adds the spices. It adds to the mixture of being able to interpret a reading much better with the minor arcana. You really can't do it without the minor arcana. The major arcana is very fascinating to work on its own, but the minor arcana just really ties it all up together. So tying together the major and the minor arcana, the thing that we need to remember is it's a lot. Don't get overwhelmed. Take your time. This is just a beginner's course. I've been studying and doing this for 22 years, and I'm still learning. There's so much to learn. You learn something new all the time. Now we're so lucky because of the internet. There's so many books out there. There's even, tarot conferences, and there's even like TarotCon, like Comic-Con. I mean, there's so much going on in this field. So it's just like a lifelong study. Don't expect to be an expert at the end of this lesson, because that's impossible. This is getting your feet wet, so to speak, and to get you more comfortable with the cards themselves. So tying it all together, astrology-wise, we kind of touched upon that as well, the different energies of each suit. And I want to make sure that everybody understands that, especially with numerology, is very important in tarot itself, but once again, it's a branch. Tarot can stand on its own. So we're going to come back and jump in to each suit. We're going to first start with the wands suit. So get your wands ready, and we'll be right back. Alright, great. Get out your wands suit. We're going to begin starting with the ace. We have the ace of wands. The ace, as all aces, are corresponding to the number 1, which is very much linked to the major arcana card, the magician, which is then the first card in the tarot deck itself. 1 is a masculine number. It's very much tied to creating. It's very much tied to manifestation. The aces are manifestations, new beginnings. They all are depicting something that has not yet arrived. It's on its way. It's a new start. It's a fresh beginning. It's something new. So all aces correspond to the number 1, which is, they call it a masculine energy because it's very driven. It's very out the gate, so to speak. So each ace is represented by the number 1 tied to the major arcana and the magician. Now, the Ace of Wands is a very interesting card because it's all about new growth, creativity, exploration, expansion. It has many different connotations mixed in with other minor arcana cards and even major arcana cards. But this card is one of enterprise, and it's also a very phallic symbol for my studies, where it could even indicate fertility as well. So the Ace of Wands is very much supercharged in terms of creativity or growth. It's very much tied to the season of spring for my studies as well. Other writers have noted that the Ace of Pentacles is tied to the season of spring. Well, for my studies, the Ace of Wands, seasonally, if you're wanting a time period, the Ace of Wands will be an indicator of the season of spring. Going into the rest of the wand suit, we have, oh, I'm backwards. We have the Two of Wands. The twos, and for numerology speaking, the twos are all about balance in each suit. So if you see a prominence of twos, that can be harmony and balance, but a lot of it can be partnership as well. So the Two of Wands is especially good for business. He is holding the world in his hands, but at the same time he's stable and he's looking towards the future. It's a card of progression. It's a card of expansion. And it can also be a card of a waiting period as well. Going into the Three of Wands, he's looking out over the horizon. And this deck, the Robin Wood Tarot deck, is pretty much similar to the Rider-Waite deck, if that's what you're using as well. And he's looking out towards the future. You can see boats in the distance in the foreground, and he's waiting for his ships to come in, literally. And he's expanding. He's broadening his horizons. And it's a great card for business as well, especially partnerships in business. The threes are all about creative growth as well. So if you see a prominence of threes, that can be an indicator. The Four of Wands is a really beautiful card and normally depicts a couple dancing under a canopy or a tarp or garland. The Four of Wands is very much tied to celebrations. This could be marriage, ceremonies, rite of passage. The Four of Wands in the Wands suit is a very romantic card. You wouldn't necessarily think that the suit of Wands has any romantic elements, but it does. So the Four of Wands is very much about celebrations, especially romantic celebrations, anniversaries, marriages, especially where other people are congratulating you. Now, going into the number 5. The number 5 for the Wands category, the Five of Wands. Fives are all about change through strife. I have a little cheat sheet because I still am trying to learn the numerology of each minor arcana card, but especially in prominence of different numbers. But especially when you see a prominence of numbers, the number 5 can indicate strife. So if you see a prominence of fives, it can be instability and strife. But the number 5 of Wands, you can see from this card, it should be about the same with the Rider-Waite deck or any other deck that you're using. Many modern tarot decks don't look anything like what the tarot is based from, and it gets a little confusing. They can get a little bit too artsy-fartsy, and so I don't want you to get confused. But the Five of Wands is a battle card, and it's essentially a mock battle where they're not being physically hurt, but it can be a card of competition. And I've seen this card come up in relationship readings, and was your partner very competitive with you? Well, yeah, they were. So it can be a card of competition, especially with others in business or in relationships. The Six of Wands is a very heroic card of victory. A prominence of sixes is all about harmony. So that's a beautiful thing. When you see a prominence of sixes, that's indicating harmony. The Six of Wands is all about victory and success and achievement, as well. As you can see, he's on his horse with the victory flag coming in through town. Now, then we go right back into the battle once again. So the Seven of Wands is a card of taking a stance, defending yourself. But as you can see, he's fighting off whatever it is that he's defending, and he has a position of advantage from his vantage point. So It's a card of strength, and it's a card of taking a position of fighting for what you believe in, essentially. So prominence of sevens. 7 is a mystical number. What goes up must come down. So if you see a prominence of sevens, what comes up must come down. So I read something interesting in terms of the number 7, and it kind of gave me goosebumps. But apparently, when the 7th child bears the 7th child, it indicates psychic powers. So if you're the 7th child in your family and you end up having 7 children, and the 7th one apparently will have psychic powers. It's like very mystical, and it's kind of like, I don't know, there's some sort of mystical element to the number 7. But the number 7 is what comes up must come down. Very interesting. Explore the number 7. Then we're jumping into the number 8. The 8 of Wands, you often may hear me say this on my readings on YouTube, but the 8 of Wands is a card of speed. So look at your 8 of Wands. The 8 of Wands is all about communication, messages, especially in any form. This could be telephone, voicemail, text. Of course, we're inundated with communication in our modern times. I remember getting a comment on my YouTube channel, well, what are you talking about communication? We communicate every day. Well, this is the speed of it. So you've been wanting to hear about something. You may hear about it quicker than you thought. Very much about letters arriving, documents. So to adjust the origins of the tarot as it was developed, back in the day to our modern times, sometimes in explaining it is people get a little like, well, what do you mean? Well, they didn't have email back then or texting and, fast speed internet, at lightning speeds. But essentially this card is all about communication, no delay. It's very much a card of speed. Now we're going back into this, tough man thing. We have the 9 of Wands. The 9 of Wands is really, once again, having courage and standing up for yourself. It's a card of not so much as having a threat from other people and feeling very comfortable and strong in your position. A prominence of 9s is completion and purification. So it's the number that's almost to number 10. Number 10s can be completion too, but the number 9 is also the purification before the completion. So here we go into the number 10 of Wands. Oh, he is struggling to carry all these wands into town. He's really having a hard time. So the 10 of Wands is very much indicative of oppression or feeling burdened, carrying the weight of the world on your shoulders, carrying too much responsibilities. And it's a card of oppression, but it's also a card of the need to release it. So a prominence of 10s can be the transcendence of completion. So knowing that you're taking on too much and the need to release it, the need to transcend to release it. So that is Ace to 10 for the Wands. Now we're going to jump into the core cards for the Wands. The Page of Wands is very much associated with children. So all pages can be associated with children. The Page of Wands in particular can be children that has astrology of fire signs. Doesn't necessarily have to be so. This could be a creative child as well. This can also represent situations. So pages can either be a child or a situation depending on what is going on in the reading based upon the other cards in the reading. The Page of Wands is very much about creativity. This can be a card of receiving good news. So there's much communication with this card as well, and expansion and growth. And the Knight is kind of like the teenager in the Minor Arcana. The Knight is very much about movement, very much about energy that's driven, that needs to get out and about, can't stand still. The Knight of Wands in particular can very much be about new directions in life. It can even be indicative of change of residence or relocation, like actually physically moving. But the Knight of Wands is on a mission, and he can come in to a reading and signify direction, or direction is changing in your life somehow. Here we come to the mom and the pop of the deck, and we have the Queen and we have the King. The Queen of Wands and the King of Wands, for my studies, are very creative, passionate people, but they are also very honest and very loyal. There's not much talked about that in terms of their characteristics. They are very good in business as well, but very, very loyal and very honest. So the Queen of Wands would be a very creative, passionate woman, could be a fire sign. The King of Wands is very creative and passionate as well, very hardworking, very driven, but very loyal and honest, especially if you have to depend on someone. And the King of Wands showed up, no doubt. You can depend on that person. So that's very interesting to explore the characteristics of the court cards, because there's so many different elements to them. I wouldn't just go by what they physically look like on the card, because that's kind of biased. I would really more or less take more detail from what they're wearing, the symbolism of what is in their surroundings on the card, especially astrology speaking, dive more into it. But if you do read books about the tarot and the court cards, they do have actual physical descriptions. So like many of them will say, you know, red hair or blonde hair or dark skin or blue eyes. Well, I don't really trust that, because it's just so broad of who it could be. So go more on their actual characteristics of being honest or being loyal, you know, whatever syncs up to you that may correspond to an actual person in your life. So following the wands, we're going to go into the cups. Once again, start with your Ace of Cups. The aces, as I stated before, represent the number 1, beginnings, tied to the major arcana card, the Magician. The Eight of Wands is really, look at it, the cup, my cup runneth over with love and emotion. I mean, it's like, wow, you know, it's dripping and oozing with passion. So this could be a great card of new beginnings in relationships, new love, a real kind of a very important love relationship can be indicated by this card. And it also can be, as I've stated in readings, an upswing in your sex life even. This card is generating so much ooey gooey goodness when it comes to relationships that it's a beautiful card to see, especially if someone's wanting to know about their relationship or about their love life, and this card appears. Well, it's a pretty positive sign. From here, we're going into the Two of Cups. The Two of Cups is very much about unions, very much about friendships. I think it's more about friendships than it is actual romantic love. This is more of a platonic love. This is going to, you know, that best friend energy. This is the friend that you can count on in the middle of the night to bail you out of jail. I mean, that kind of connection. So a real card of mutual affection for one another. It's a good card in relationships, no doubt, but it's really one of connection with people and that strong bond that you may have with your best friend or your sister or even your partner. So it's a real unbreakable bond. Going forward, the cups, of course, are so positive. The Three of Cups, very much about new beginnings and celebrations in terms of marriage, pregnancy, new relationships. It can run the gamut, the Three of Cups, very positive. The Four of Cups, he is just not happy, because the Four of Cups is a card of discontentment. It's a card of of feeling so burned out and having this feeling of discontentment go on too long that you just basically become jaded. You basically don't know what you want, lots of things being offered to you, but you're just kind of stuck in this emotional mindset or emotional frame of nothing makes you happy. So this can be a card of snapping out of that, or pointing it out to the person that may not realize they've kind of been attached to negative emotion. The Five of Cups, once again, this is a card more of shame, guilt, and regret because the person is cloaked, not showing their face. And there's three cups that have spilled over and 2 cups standing. And your card should look very similar, whatever deck you're using. This is a card of regret and disappointment, but something that you may have put a lot of emotion into, but something is left over because there's still 2 cups that are standing. So let's say that you were wondering about your marriage. This card came up, you knew in the reading you're having problems with your significant other. There may be disappointment or great disappointment going on, and the tarot would basically validate that to you. Here we have this, I'm backwards again. Here we have the Six of Cups. The Six of Cups is a great card of nostalgia. There's a little boy and a little girl in the card, and they're reaching out to one another, and there's flowers and the sun's in the background. So the Six of Cups is very much about the past. It's very much connected to childhood memories, nostalgia. This can even be indicative of someone coming back from your past. I've seen that happen. So this is a real card of the past. So if you're wanting to know, is my lover going to return to me, and this card appears in the outcome position, there may be a great indicator of that. So this is a lot of things tied to your past that may benefit you in the present. Then we go forward into the Seven of Cups. The Seven of Cups, as you can tell, is very dreamy, very fantasy. I call it imagination station because the Seven of Cups is like having so many dreams or so many fantasies and, being daydreamy, which there's nothing wrong with that, but being daydreamy and not really sure, not really like forming a long-term goal with anything that you may be dreaming about or thinking about, and just really not being sure about what it is that you want. It can also be a card of disillusion and not allowing the fantasy to carry you off, and to kind of get more grounded to the actual dream itself. The Eight of Cups is a card of basically having enough and walking out of a situation, and it's the beginning stages of doing so. So this is a card of actually abandoning a situation in the present moment. So if this card comes up and you're like, what's to come about with my job, and you see this card coming up, there may be possibilities that you may be just leaving your job. You may be thinking about leaving your job. There are all sorts of things. It could be leaving a relationship. The Eight of Cups is basically having enough. You've had enough. It's time to abandon a project, a situation, a relationship. I love this card. This is the Nine of Cups, and he's so gluttonous and happy, and everything that he wants is basically coming true. So the Nine of Cups is traditionally known as the wish card. The wish card is be careful what you wish for because it may happen. So if you see the Nine of Cups in the outcome position, there's very much a strong possibility that it will come true. The Ten of Cups is a card of family. It's a beautiful reminder of family support. This doesn't even have to be large families. This is an indicator of love, support, family, friends, children, generational cards. A very happy card. It's a very happy, supportive card. Now going into the core cards for the cups, we have the Page of Cups. This once again could be a child or a situation. The Page of Cups could be a very dreamy child, very creative child, very intelligent. So the Page of Cups Could be a situation in terms of relationships, emotions, partnerships, many things tied to relationships for the page. The Knight of Cups is very interesting because he is on the move, especially in terms of emotion. The Knight of Cups could traditionally mean a proposal, an invitation. So if you're wondering, am I going to be asked out soon, and the Knight of Cups appears, there's possibilities for that. But it's a proposal. He's wanting to give to someone. So there's possibilities of you doing the giving or someone else's. It's a very romantic card. The Queen of Cups, I really think she is like the Earth Mother, kind of like the Empress. She's a very earthy, dreamy woman who I always speak of her as unconditional love, the mother type, the mother archetype, very much associated with goddess-like energies. She's the mother figure. So when I see this card appear, I really think she's the mother in all four suits, the Queen of Cups. The King of Cups is one who is very fun to be around, very loving, very supportive, unconditional love as well, but he makes you feel good. If you know someone that every time they see you, they just are so overjoyed to see you, they light up the room, that kind of energy, they make you feel really good about yourself, generated from the King of Cups. So we've done the suit of wands, we've done the suit of cups, and we're going to come back and jump into the swords and the pentacles. So I'm going to take a little break, and then I'm going to be right back, and we're going to finish up our lesson of crossing the bridge into the minor arcana.